We're here on Poole Quay, about to embark on a trip to investigate one of the best preserved wrecks in British waters. For 750 years, this ship has kept its secrets just metres beneath the waves off the coast of southern England.
That's right, and we're going to find out about its unique cargo, the crew, and how it came into its watery grave.
Let's climb aboard. Today we're in the Purbecks in Dorset on the south coast of England. This beautiful setting marks the eastern end of the Jurassic coast, an area famed for its rich abundance of fossils and much admired Purbeck stone. It's this material that's brought us here today to investigate a shipwreck just off the coast, laden with a cargo of finished stone goods.
We've just navigated our way through Poole Harbour and we've approached the wreck site here. So we're the other side of the harbour there with Old Harry Rock.
I was going to say, it's amazing to see the coast from this perspective, and it's quite a touching moment just now when we pulled up to the buoys that have protected wreck written on to think that this is where that ship went down.
This
is
the
point.
view they would have seen.
Yeah.
What do we know about this wreck then, Derek, and what are we hoping to get from this excavation?
Well, it's an amazing wreck because it's one of the oldest English wrecks in the channel. What that means is it's a medieval wreck. And it's incredibly well preserved. So there are older wrecks out there. In fact, there's a wreck just off Salcombe, further west along the coast, that dates to the Bronze Age. But that's characterised and identifiable by its cargo, whereas this one we actually have some timbers. The boat itself is there, so we can learn about the building and the construction of the boat.
The wreck dates to the mid-13th century during the reign of King Henry III, a Plantagenet king, son of King John and nephew of Richard the Lionheart.
This was the time of Magna Carta and the Robin Hood legends, when the building of impressive castles and cathedrals was at its height. While the stone was often sourced locally, some prized materials were shipped in from further afield, like Purbeck stone from the quarries here in Dorset. A thriving industry in the 13th century that continues today.
So it's 13th century, but we've also got cargo on this one, haven't we? And that's kind of linked to the industry in the area and the natural resources that we found here. We've got Purbeck marble and other things, but they're processing the marbles and turning them into pretty fine objects.
Purbeck stone was obviously a desirable resource in medieval England. Following the death of Queen Eleanor in 1291, Edward I erected a series of magnificent crosses in her honour, with 41 shillings being paid for the freight of a ship bringing marble from Corfe.
The King's Table, commissioned in the 13th century by Henry III, was fashioned out of Purbeck marble. Contemporary with our wreck, it could possibly have come out of the very same workshop.
The Haysom family have been quarrying in this area for generations, and recently they've identified a quarry face that could well be medieval, including some loosened slabs that bear a striking resemblance to the grave slabs on our wreck. For many hundred years, people were quarrying stone in much the same way, using manual tools to create small V-shaped grooves, which they'd then hammer in wedges and split the rock into the rough shapes that they would then hew down into the finished products. So this is one of the pieces from the potentially medieval quarry, and you can see along here where they've picked out these grooves that they would have put wedges into to split the stone into what appears to be the shape of one of our medieval coffins. It's part of a very long industrial history of Poole Harbour. The southern part of the harbour is a beautiful natural landscape. It's an agricultural landscape or a heathland landscape, whereas 750 years ago and back to the Iron Age, that was an industrial landscape. We know of the Poole Harbour industry because in the Iron Age, for example, we've got an industrial port complex on the southern fringes near to Green Island. Yeah. In fact, Time Team were there some years ago. Yeah. And that landscape is part of a trading and industry landscape that goes from the Iron Age right the way through to the early medieval period, and then everything moves north to Poole. So this ship is probably part of that southern harbour industrial seascape, which is incredible.
So the divers are down there, or just getting ready. They're going to be down there, and they're actually excavating the site itself. They're going to do some digital recording as well, and then we're going to be lifting some of the artefacts that have been part of that wreck and been sitting there for hundreds of years. Exciting opportunity.
It's amazing to see those artefacts come up and put our eyes on them for the first time in 750 years. It's going to be incredible, not least because we know they were quarried just over there around the coast, and yet they were distributed around the country and to the continent. So this is a huge global industry of Purbeck marble. We don't know exactly where the ship was headed, but it could have been destined for a port around the coast of Britain, as transporting heavy goods by sea was much quicker than over land. Purbeck marble can be found in cathedrals across England, from Canterbury to Salisbury, plus Westminster Abbey and Temple Church. Or possibly even across the Channel to the continent. Purbeck stone has been found in medieval buildings, churchyards and sites across Northern Europe, from France to Denmark.
Okay, 2 seconds.
But there's also artefacts from the lives of the sailors. So there's a few bronze artefacts that relate to what life was like on the ship. So I'm really excited to talk to some of the crew about those.
And what sort of things are the artefacts tell us? How they're cooking their food?
Yeah, that's right. So some cooking pots and some just fairly normal things. And this isn't like a high prestige ship. This is just your run-of-the-mill trading boat. So we can tell stories and think about the lives of just ordinary people in the medieval period, which is incredible.
I popped into the helm to come and have a chat with our skipper for the day, Trevor. You've got a pretty close link to this site, haven't you?
I have. I found this site a number of years ago, and I've had quite a good working relationship with Bournemouth University, and I alerted them to this site and asked them to do an exploratory dive on it. This is a site that I travel over probably 4 times a day.
Right.
I'm constantly looking at the seabed, any changes, any anomalies.
Right.
And not specifically individual marks, but something different than the surrounding seabed.
So you picked it up on the boat sonar. What was it that stood out to you?
With sites, fish life quickly inhabits it, and you see a disturbance in the surrounding seabed. And I definitely convinced myself there was some form of structure there.
That's brilliant, Trevor. Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to see what comes up today.
Tom Cousins is a maritime archaeologist at Bournemouth University and the lead investigator on the project. He's one of the team who will be diving the wreck today. So Tom's just gone in the water, and we are incredibly fortunate to have a live feed connecting us to him, and we can talk to Tom and get a tour of the archaeology, and he can talk us through what is going on under the sea at the moment. Tom, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Can you talk us through what we're seeing here?
So what you're seeing here is the north end of the site, which I think is the bow end, and you can see all these mortars. So I don't know how well you can see, but like these were, when we first started the site in 2019, these were all over the seabed exposed. And this whole area here has about 20 or 30 mortars in it. Very nicely, perfectly carved. Some are a bit eaten away. And this is probably where the sand levels have dropped up and down, and various animals have colonised the rock of the ship. But we also have these grave slabs. So this is a small half a grave slab. The base of the cross, which is broken, so you'd assume the other half is here unless it was salvaged at the time. But we also have this cross you can see with the 3 trefoil ends on the cross and a circle there, and 4. And this one isn't in a great, this has lost its cavalry. But then our best one we have here is this little Purbeck marble.
That one's staggering, Tom. How come it's so well preserved?
I think with this, because it's been straight to the seabed, big heavy stone sink, And the sand, where it is between the large mound of stones and this timber, is covered up quite well. So I think it's survived the mechanical protection of the sands blowing across it. And so this one is 12 early, so I think it's about 1240s, so we're closer to the 1240, 1250 date rather than the 1260 date.
On a recent Time Team dig, I stumbled across some very large stone grave slabs in a chapel graveyard with a similar cross design carved into the stone. While these examples are much later, they give a sense of the size and setting of the slabs when placed in situ. Tom, I can see you wafting things with your hand there. As someone who's very used to doing archaeology on the surface with a trowel, how do you clean up underwater?
So usually we have a big water dredge or an airlift, so you create suction by shooting water down a pipe with a hole at the bottom. It creates suction, so it's almost like having a big Dyson vacuum cleaner to clear away the spoil. And the other way is just to literally waft with your hands to get the lighter weed away.
So this one doesn't look like a grave slab. What are we looking at here?
So we think this might be an altar stone. We've found one in a French archive. One of my French colleagues was asking about one, and no one else in the Purbeck Marble people have seen one. If we look at the other side here, it's quite smooth. You can see all the individual snails. So we plan to bring this one up so we can study it better on the surface.
Amazing.
It's quite rare as monuments. There's also this broken circular shaped one just next to it, which we'll probably bring, because it's such a fragile state, we'll probably bring that up so we can preserve it and see if there's any more marks, chisel marks or any carvings on them.
Amazing. So we've got all this marble. Is there much remaining of the ship itself?
Yeah, so as I said, under this pile of sandbags we've got a massive stem timber, and if you move forward into the large cairn, which is absolutely about a metre higher timber, you can start seeing the hull. So probably all under here. This is one of the planks.
Oh.
This is the remains of a frame. We have a series of planks till we get to. This is where we took our dendro samples, which gave us our date range. We have 3 planks. On here. Then we have these whole planks are continuing through the timbers under this mound. And we've got the frames continuing. But what we are noticing with these frames coming out the side here is that they're being heavily eroded by gribble and shipworm. So you can see this is quite big here, but further down it's very thin.
So what's the plan now, Tom?
Well, the plan now is I'm going to tag these timbers with nice bright yellow tags, and then we're going to do a photogrammetric survey. That way we can sort of see a good overview, because as divers we can only see max about 5 metres around you. In order to get that big good picture overview of the site, we'll do a photogrammetry survey, then we can reconstruct where all these frames are and try and reconstruct what the ship looks like under the mound.
Thank you so much for the tour, Tom. It's been amazing to see it in front of me. I better let you get on because I know you want to bring some finds to the surface, so we'll leave you to it for a minute.
Derek's just been chatting to Tom on the wreck and using some fantastic technology to enable us to understand what's going on and record the archaeology. And it's a great opportunity to chat to Rachel about how technology and other things are helping us with this research project. So, Rachel, could you give us an idea of some of the things you've been using to investigate this site?
So we do photogrammetric surveys underwater, but we do them via diver. So with some great people on the boat today who do a ton of photogrammetry for many different projects. But effectively exactly the same thing. So instead of having a drone that you might program to fly a grid over a site and get lots of overlapping pictures that you then stitch together into your 3D model, do the same thing but you swim over the top of the site with your cameras, and then stitch those together. And you can do it, like you say, kind of time series, right? So if you're excavating a site, or even if you're just going back year after year and you want to assess change, then we can do exactly the same thing. So you have the series of images that show you how the site is changing through time, whether that's on a yearly basis or whether that's day to day, because you might happen to be moving stuff or excavating.
As Rachel explains, the underwater photos are stitched together to create a 3D photogrammetry model of the site. We can use this model to compare and monitor the state of the wreck over time. Here we can see scattered mortars, several grave slabs and modern sea bags laid to protect the wreck from erosion. The rocks piled over the wreck may have been the ship's ballast.
Very exciting moment here, Derek. So Tom's been down there starting some of the excavation and revealing up some of the finds, and we're in a position where we're able to lift some of these finds. It's the first time they've seen the light of day in quite a long time.
What I love about this moment is it's basically a bread basket that's getting lowered down to Tom. This is a high-tech moment. So I'm not sure what Tom's putting in, but I'm hoping to see one of those mortars would be amazing.
So there's a variety of things down there. I think Tom described a bowl previously that he described. These mortars.
There's also that flat piece that we looked at on the tour just now. Right. I'd love to see that, see if there's any working marks or any inscriptions potentially on there.
That's amazing. True. The difference here between excavating a feature on ground, so let's talk about a pit for example, and you find your piece of Roman pot in the soil and you pop it in your finds tray. So this is an equivalent to a finds tray.
Yeah, so Tom's got a finds tray, but to find the finds tray he has to follow his own umbilical back to it, which is, I can't, when I was talking to Tom just now, I couldn't believe he had the strength of mind to be so candid and clear underwater in all of this gear, and just to be able to comfortably do it and operate under those conditions. It's mind-blowing. So those are two of the finds Tom was talking us through just now, which is incredible. I can't believe.
Roger, slack the diver's umbilical.
And this fits together beautifully. I mean, it's so well preserved, isn't it?
And that was just below the water 5-10 minutes ago when you were talking to Tom. That's the first time it's been above water in some 700 years.
Bring it up nice and slowly.
The finds continue to come up, and we've just been given the heads up that there's a mortar that's coming up in this. So these are the big, long, imagine the sort of thing you'd have in your kitchen, sort of pestle and mortar type thing, and it's a heavy object, so they're preparing to bring it up now.
Look at that. Oh my God, it's huge.
My word.
That's a big one. Wow. I mean, look at how preserved that is. That's gobsmacking.
So you've got two spouts effectively, and then presumably these are handles for that handling.
It's not a casual piece of kitchenware though, is it?
No.
I mean, this is cooking on an industrial scale.
And it's got a substantial, even just the base, you're looking at 2-3 inches worth of extra stone from the bottom of it, from the inside to the bottom of the base. So it's a heavy object, but the finish along the top there is spectacularly beautiful.
I can't believe that's been on the seabed for hundreds of years. Look at it, it's amazing. We've already seen some incredible finds today, but I'm here with Heather, who's been with the dive team now for 10 years, and she's got something absolutely incredible to show us. Heather, what have you got here?
We've got a copper posnet, which is kind of like a cauldron crossed with a ladle. So you can see the part of its handle here, it would have been a lot longer. And we've got all 3 legs.
Oh, wow.
And so these bits were actually found separately a couple of years later, but we've got all the jigsaw pieces.
So what would this have been used for?
It looks like we've got some pictures from medieval times, and it looks like they would have used it to warm drinks and then serve them. So kind of like a ladle cauldron hybrid.
You were one of the crew that actually found this. So what was it like to be on the seabed and see this emerging?
Yeah, it was amazing. So we were just diving on some anomalies, and sometimes they're chunks of seaweed. But luckily this day it was Lots of mortars, which I think you've seen already, and then this glimmering out of the sand.
That's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that with us.
No worries.
Tom, welcome back to the surface. You gave Derek that fantastic tour of the site beneath us right here, and you've brought up this beautiful mortar. What's next for this site?
Well, all depends on funding, but in the short term, we're going to have to sandbag all the timbers down. We'll do a photogrammic model of what we've got so far, just so we can keep it monitored and we can work out the extent of what the ship is underneath the cairn. But in going into the future, we could do a full-scale excavation, remove the stones to actually expose the wreck, record it in situ, then we can bring it up, preserve it, and maybe reconstruct the ship on the surface. But that's the long-term goal.
And is that because there's a particular threat to the wreck at the moment?
Yeah, so we've noticed on the frames, especially the ones coming out of the timbers, is that they're being completely eaten by the local sea life.
Oh, right.
And because they're not protected by the sand or any of the silt, so they'll be slowly eaten away until there's nothing left. And we've done experiments in the area that's shown if a colony sets up and gets going, you can lose like up to a third of the surface area in almost 6 months.
And do we know what type of wood it's made out of?
So it is oak.
It is oak. Okay.
And we have one floor timber, but it's one of the big frames across as a keel, and that's actually drifted off the site, and that's in almost perfect condition with the sapwood. So that will tell us down to the season the tree was cut down.
Wow, fascinating.
The team have taken core samples from the ship's timbers to establish its age by dendrochronology dating, or tree ring analysis. The trees were felled sometime between 1242 and 1265, during the reign of Henry III. This ties in nicely with the grave slab carvings, which the team have stylistically dated to this period. What's more, the dendroanalysis tells us about the environment in which the trees grew, and this is the really amazing bit. The timbers have been traced to the same Irish oak forests that supplied the rafters to Salisbury Cathedral in 1222.
Tom's latest thinking, based on the post-excavation analysis, is that the ship is likely to be much larger than the team had originally supposed, probably 24 metres long with a 6-metre beam. It may have even housed a castle at the stern. Overall, it could have supported a crew of 20 seamen alongside its impressive cargo.
This model of a 13th century nef gives an impression of what the ship may have looked like.
So why did the ship sink? Not enough is known about the wreck to say with certainty. Perhaps it was caught in a storm. It's also possible that the heavy cargo played some role in its demise. We do know that this coastline has been littered with wrecks across the ages.
In time, the team hopes to recover more clues about the fateful day the ship went down. Well, we've made it back in after an amazing day at sea.
It was good. A bit choppy, but you found your sea legs, didn't you?
I found my sea legs eventually. I must admit though, there was one moment I was sitting just here and we were bouncing up and down, and I may have been a little unwell, and I started to ponder what life would have been like for the sailors, for the people on that boat, because even on this modern vessel as we've got it here, you feel quite vulnerable when you're rocking around at sea like that. And imagine being on a wooden ship laden down with so much stone. It must have been quite a frightening experience for the sailors.
Yeah, it certainly gave us an insight into what it might have been like in rugged seas, stormy seas, and what might have brought that ship down. But
it's really important, isn't it? Because we talk about a ship and we talk about a wreck, but there were people on board, and I like to imagine they could make it back to shore. It's not too big a swim, but in rough conditions it would have been horrifying out there to go down. And while we're looking at the artefacts and we're looking at the materials and we're trying to learn about the people in the past, of course that could well be a graveyard down there.
That's true. But with regards to conditions today, the team did a fantastic job from an archaeological perspective. They got down, they cleared the site, they got their 3D recording done, and we had that amazing moment where the mortar was what came up and we got to see its beautiful condition.
So good. I mean, what an honour to spend a day with such professionals. I mean, it is life and death as well. These guys are diving. These guys are breathing through tubes. At one point I was stood right next to one of their umbilicals and I thought,
don't tread on that.
Yeah. But amazing to see such pros at work. I'm
almost certainly never going to be a maritime archaeologist, but what an amazing experience to be a part of for a day.
Yeah, a huge thanks to the team, and should I get you a ginger beer?
Yeah, let's go.
If you'd like to see more Expedition Crew episodes like this one, you can help to make it happen. Please consider subscribing, and if you can, become a member on Patreon to access extra content.
Join Time Team on Patreon to access exclusive 3D models, masterclasses and behind-the-scenes insights.